Duelist changes will be coming. A while ago, we got this kind of tweet coming out. The Valorant patch 8.11, that is the patch that is coming out after Master Shanghai ends, will be about agent balancing and map rotation. Now, for those of you wondering, the map rotation, if I had to guess, will be the new map that was teased in the Battle Pass coming out, and probably, I would guess, Fracture coming back in as well, and 2 maps leaving us, so that is what I would, if I had to guess, would be that. But the confirmed news is that Duelist will be having the biggest changes, and Viper is said to have another small adjustment. Now, I'm not sure if they will go through with this, because I think the reaction from the community about Viper has been, quite that, like, this is enough, leave it as is. So I guess we'll see. But let's talk today about these Duelist changes and what might happen. Now, what I'm personally hoping for is a patch that was like 4.04. Now, some of you won't remember that patch, but it was the patch where they changed the controllers. They basically just went through the 4 controllers at the time and really just changed them all, right? And then they even made this post, talking about why they made the changes as well to all of them. This is when Astra's Star went from 5 to 4. They tried to nerf Viper, lol. They actually buffed Omen, which in retrospect looks kind of funny. And Brim got the double stim beacon, I think, on this patch as well. So, this is when they made kind of significant controller changes. And this is what I'm kind of hoping for, that we get an 8.11 for the Duelists. Because the Duelist class has been extremely broken for a very, very long time. For pretty much the entire history of this game, either one of Raze or Jett, or both of them, have been clearly leagues better than any of the other Duelists when it comes to high-level play. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some agent pick rate stats so we can understand what's likely to happen to some of these agents. We're going to take a look at VCT Americas, but I will cross-reference with EMEA as well, because it is a bit different. Viper, lol. Obviously, this is before the nerfs, but lol. Right, like, lol. This is like higher than Peak Chamber, by the way. But anyway, Raze is the next most played agent, right? So let's start with Raze, because Raze is going to get nerfed. I would be shocked if Raze did not get a nerf. And how would you go about nerfing Raze? Well, for me, Raze has a couple problems. One is actually her ult, because what you will see, particularly on certain maps, Lotus is a prime example of this, right? Lotus attack side, it feels like 50% of the time, a team will have their Raze ult by round 3. Because your Raze, is probably your aggressive Duelist player, maybe your best player who's getting kills quite a lot, right? Probably dies as well, to be honest, later on in the round as they're chasing kills. They can farm ult orbs, you can potentially even give them the spike to plant, and they have their ult by round 3. That then wins you round 3, and then you just snowball from there. Right, like that happens quite often in these programs. So I would not be shocked whatsoever to see the Raze ult go up to 9. Just because of that problem, because of the farming of the ult orbs and spike plants and stuff like that at a high level. And then, can become a very quick snowball with Raze. So I think that they might try and want to curb that a bit, make the ult 9 cost instead. That wouldn't be the end of the world, but I do think they're going to make probably a change to the satchels as well. This is something I've talked about before, but the Raze satchels just do so much, and they are such a multi-use ability that it doesn't really make much sense when you compare it to other abilities for how many different things you can do, right? Obviously, you can enter in onto the site, you can potentially escape. Yeah, there's the movement component for it for Raze, of course, the kind of primary use, you might say. But also there's so many other things, right? That you can boost teammates up on a box if you want to. You can throw off opponents' crosshairs if you want to. You can deny them from defusing or planting the spike for some reason as well. I mean, there's other ones that I'm probably missing in there because this ability just does everything. Oh, it destroys utility. It deals damage. Like, this ability does everything for some reason, right? And I would be surprised if they don't try and tackle that. Now, the nerf that I would probably go for if I was looking at that would just be so that the satchels, they still do damage, they can still break util, but they only affect Raze, right? Raze is the only one who gets moved by satchels. That would bring Raze more in line in terms of those kind of things, so I think that would be a pretty good nerf. Let's talk about Jett, because Jett is next on the list here at 34%. Now in EMEA, it's more like 22%, something around that. So it's not as high across the board everywhere. And to be honest, I don't even think Jett is that good. That's kind of my personal hot take about pro play, that I don't think Jett is that good of an agent, to be honest, at the highest levels. I just think that a lot of pro players for like a 2 to 3 year period only played this agent, and so a lot of them have mastered this agent, to its max extent, and so therefore it makes sense for them to play Jett because their mastery of Jett is better than other agents, and so it's probably going to lead to better results. Maybe you would want to like do the slightest of slightest nerfs, but you know, I'm not talking anything big. You know, I'm talking about like, oh, the cloud burst costs 50 more, right? Like literally that kind of nerf would be like the extent of what I'd be willing to go for Jett. Okay, the next one here in Americas is down at 5%, and that's Yoru. Now, this is a lot higher, like in EMEA. Again, it's more like 21% kind of deal. So, again, this isn't across the board. There are, you know, other regions that do play Yoru a lot more. And Yoru is another one I think is kind of personally fine, right? Again, you might look at like, you know, little quality of life updates, but we are starting to see more Yoru get played in general and find success as well, right? We've seen some really good Yoru play, I think, across this year of ECT. So I personally wouldn't be looking to change Yoru really in any meaningful way. I think Yoru's in a pretty good spot. Now let's get to the dregs though, because we're down here now at Raina at 2%. And look, one of my most viewed videos of all time is talking about the Raina problem that Riot has, because Riot does kind of have a Raina problem in that you can't really buff Raina because then she would just be broken in ranked. And you can't really nerf Raina because then you would have a completely useless agent, right? So there's really nothing you can do with this agent other than like small quality of life changes. So I would be highly surprised, unless they've got a full rework incoming for Raina, you know, I would be highly surprised if anything happens. Okay, next up we have Phoenix, who's down here at 1%. Again, for Phoenix, for me, I wouldn't want to go too hard because I do think that Phoenix is a pretty good ranked agent. And I wouldn't want to, you know, create a ranked problem necessarily there with Phoenix. But I think there are some things you can do that, you know, maybe wouldn't affect ranked that much, but could affect the higher levels of the game quite a lot with the way the agent is used. One for me that I think would really help Phoenix quite a lot at high level play was if his wall could go through walls. I think that would be a mega buff at the higher levels of play, but really wouldn't affect rank that much, honestly. Oh, maybe we can use this wall in some interesting, cool, innovative ways that now allow us to, you know, do some things that we previously couldn't do, right? I think that's the kind of buff that they should be looking for Phoenix, because obviously the flashes are just really good, right? The ult is just good. There's no kind of getting around that, but the other two abilities, not so good. Right, and I've heard a lot of people talking about, oh, I wish, you know, he could heal more with the abilities. But again, to me, that's not fixing the issue. That's just making Phoenix better in ranked. Maybe the Phoenix Molly lasts a bit longer, is a bit bigger, you know, stuff like that. That's kind of universally good as well. But those are kind of the more buffs that I would like to see. And I do think that wall change would really make quite a sizable difference to how people look at Phoenix. Okay, next up is Neon, who's actually at 0% here in Americas. Again, in the other regions, that isn't quite the case, but, you know, it's Americas. What can you do? They all just copy each other. They're not very innovative over there. But Neon obviously has a problem. And the main problem for Neon for me is obviously that you're just a worse Raze or Jett. Neon also, I think, has a big problem in that when you are playing Neon versus a Cypher or a Killjoy compared to Jett or Raze, you have a big problem, right? Because you are going to run into trips. You are going to run into nano swarms, alarm bot stuff, right? Whereas a Jett might updraft, you know, dash past it, or Raze might satchel through the air past it, right? And doesn't get hit by that stuff. Neon does get hit by that stuff, and that's a problem. And I was thinking about changing the wall back to have damage, and some of you might have been like, why did they even change that in the first place, right? Like, why did they do that? And a part of me does suspect that one of the reasons that they changed the wall doing damage is because then it might break Sentinel utility, and maybe they thought that on the wall that's obviously very long, that would be too strong. I don't think that would be too strong. I think that would help Neon massively if the wall could destroy some of the utility, and also just having that psychological barrier of, hey, people don't like when their health bar goes down, even if it's just tiny amounts, right? You just don't like seeing it tick down. It's just a psychological thing, right? And so people are just less likely to swing into your wall than they are right now, because right now it doesn't deal any damage, right? So hey, the Neon's probably running in between the two parts of the wall. I'm just gonna swing in, kill the Neon, come out, I'm safe, right? Like, I'm feeling good. That would just help in a lot of ways, honestly. Even if it did damage to teammates as well, don't care, right? I think that would help Neon a lot. Also, the stun, I think is very hard to use. I think Neon as a character is pretty hard to use, so I would like to reward Neon players more for hitting a stun, right? The stun right now does 3 seconds of concuss if you get hit by it. A breach fault line, by the way, is 3.5 seconds, so I might look at like buffing that up to 3.5 in line with breach to kind of reward Neon players, you know, for hitting a stun, which I don't think is very easy all the time. And then finally, of course, we have ISO. Oh, poor ISO down here at the bottom. Obviously, ISO needs a lot of work, but I think there are just a couple quick, easy changes that they could do that would help ISO at least become a playable agent, right? One is, for me, and look, I'm not sure that they will do this because this kind of maybe goes against the sense of the whole character, but I think the whole, like, shooting the little orb thing, it's not for me. I would just have the shield be, if you get a kill whilst that ability is active, you just get a shield, right? And maybe it lasts less time or whatever, right? Cool, sure, whatever. There you go. That's now a good ability that you have, ISO. Congratulations. Another really cool idea that someone in my Twitch chat brought up a couple days ago as well was for ISO's ult. ISO doesn't die if he loses the ult, right? You get a kill if you win, but if ISO loses, he just goes back. And it's like a Phoenix ult. And then all of a sudden, ISO has a really strong ult. Obviously, his wall still has problems as well that, you know, maybe you want to make it wider, you know, maybe you want to change how far away it actually starts, because I feel like it starts a bit too far away from ISO right now. But ISO obviously needs a lot of work, but I think some of those ideas, if you did bring them in, would it make ISO good in pro play? Probably not, but at least it would be a playable agent. So those are just some of my suggestions. Let me know what you think in the comments down below.